Mr. Kennedy has the best seat in the House at the function, and it will be starting just about now, the finale for this affair.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
I can now retire from politics after having had Happy Birthday sung to me in such a sweet
May 19th, 1962. A star, a president, and a song. This is a scene many of us know. A glittering dress, a breathless voice, and a public performance that fueled decades of speculation. But this story is more complex than a simple spectacle. For decades, the narrative of Marilyn Monroe and John F. Kennedy has been a cornerstone of Hollywood and political folklore. However, the real story is a tangled file of secret meetings, alleged FBI wiretaps, and a far more dangerous dynamic that has been obscured by time. This is an examination of what truly happened when Hollywood's most luminous star became entangled with America's most powerful political dynasty. The early 1960s were an exercise in myth-making. In Washington, the Kennedy administration was presented as Camelot, an era of glamour and youthful energy, with the charismatic president John F. Kennedy at its center. In Hollywood, no star was brighter than Marilyn Monroe. She was a cultural phenomenon, the embodiment of bombshell beauty, yet behind the scenes, she was a person plagued by insecurity and a profound need for validation. Their two worlds were on a collision course. While some biographers have speculated they were introduced as early as 1954, their paths definitively crossed at a dinner party in New York in February 1962. From there, the whispers began. The most cited alleged encounter occurred a month later, in March 1962, when Monroe was invited to a weekend at the Palm Springs home of singer Bing Crosby. According to some who have commented on that weekend, the connection was intimate, but the nature of this connection remains a subject of debate. Was it a romance, a casual dalliance, or something else entirely? Friends of Kennedy suggested he viewed it as another fleeting encounter. Conversely, those close to Marilyn believed she was becoming infatuated. Her massager, Ralph Roberts, later stated that Marilyn gave him the impression the Palm Springs weekend happened only once and was not a major event for either of them. For Marilyn, however, a woman who often felt intensely lonely, even a brief connection with such a powerful figure could have felt significant. The lines between a casual fling and a life-altering affair were beginning to blur, with consequences no one could have predicted. Whatever the private reality, the rumored affair burst into public consciousness on that now infamous night at Madison Square Garden. It was a fundraiser for the president's 45th birthday, and First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy was notably absent. Marilyn Monroe appeared on stage, shed her ermine coat to reveal a skin-tight rhinestone-covered dress, and delivered a breathy, intimate performance of Happy Birthday. In front of 15,000 people, she wasn't just singing to a president. Many perceived it as a serenade to a lover. After she finished, JFK took the stage, quipping, "I can now retire from politics after having had Happy Birthday sung to me in such a sweet and wholesome way." The crowd roared, but behind the laughter, a scandal was solidifying. The night, however, held more secrets. According to actress Shirley MacLaine, who attended an exclusive after-party, she witnessed a shocking series of events. In her book, MacLaine recounts seeing President Kennedy emerge from a bedroom where Monroe had been waiting, only for his younger brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, to enter the same room moments later. MacLaine even claims she told their brother Teddy Kennedy about it years later, and he laughed, remarking on how the boys got away with it all the time. This account represents a critical turning point in the narrative. According to multiple biographers, including James Spada, it became pretty clear that Marilyn had had sexual relations with both Bobby and Jack. Spada and others allege that as JFK grew tired of Marilyn, he passed her off to his brother in the spring of 1962. The alleged relationship with Robert, or Bobby, was said to be different, more intense, more emotional, and ultimately far more volatile. While JFK was known for his affairs, RFK was the chief law enforcement officer in the country. An affair with Hollywood's most famous and fragile star would not just be a personal indiscretion, it was a political and security liability. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, was already monitoring Monroe due to her alleged leftist associations, and her proximity to the Kennedy brothers placed her in an incredibly precarious position. By the summer of 1962, the situation had deteriorated. Marilyn was allegedly growing frantic, feeling used and discarded by the two powerful men. Accounts suggest her phone calls to the White House and the Department of Justice went unreturned. It was during this period that rumors began to circulate about her desperation turning into threats. She allegedly told friends about a little red book where she kept notes on sensitive conversations with the Kennedys, details that could have been politically explosive. The rumor was that she was threatening to hold a press conference and reveal everything. Whether she was a woman seeking revenge or a vulnerable person making a cry for help, she was now seen as a liability. The 2022 Netflix documentary, The Mystery of Marilyn Monroe, The Unheard Tapes, presents evidence from investigative journalist Anthony Summers, suggesting that Robert Kennedy visited Monroe's home on the day she died, August 4, 1962, to definitively end their relationship. The documentary includes accounts from sources who claimed the visit led to a heated argument. Later that night, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her Brentwood home. The official cause was ruled a probable suicide from a barbiturate overdose. She was 36 years old. But her death was only the beginning of the incoherence and suspicion that has persisted for 60 years. The file on her death is filled with unanswered questions. Why did the housekeeper, Eunice Murray, allegedly change her story multiple times? Why do some reports claim Monroe's body was moved? Conspiracy theories ignited almost immediately. The most prominent theory alleges Kennedy involvement, not in a direct murder plot, but in a cover-up to erase any connection between them and Monroe on the night she died. Private investigator Fred Otosh, whose secret files have been the subject of books, claimed he had Monroe's house bugged and that Robert Kennedy was there that day. Otosh alleged that a distraught Monroe called Peter Lawford after RFK left, saying, "Say goodbye to Pat, say goodbye to the president, and say goodbye to yourself because you're a nice guy," before she lost consciousness. Other theories point to the mob. Boss Sam Giancana, who was being aggressively pursued by Attorney General Robert Kennedy, may have seen Monroe as a way to blackmail the Kennedys. Some even claim the CIA was involved as retaliation for the Kennedys' handling of the Bay of Pigs invasion. In 1982, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office reviewed the case due to overwhelming public speculation. They concluded there was no credible evidence to support a murder theory, but did admit that factual discrepancies and unanswered questions remained. The evidence is a complex web of eyewitness accounts, classified documents, and decades of speculation. From a weekend in Palm Springs to a desperate final phone call, the story is full of contradictions. What is the most plausible explanation for what really happened? Was it a tragic accident, a suicide fueled by heartbreak, or something far more sinister? In the end, we are left with no definitive proof of a prolonged affair and no confession to a conspiracy. We have the only known photograph of Monroe with both Kennedy brothers taken on the night of her birthday performance, a frozen moment in time. We have the powerful words of those who were there, like Shirley MacLaine, and the meticulous research of investigators who dedicated their lives to the case. Biographer James Spada, who believes Marilyn was involved with both brothers, concludes that the evidence points not to murder, but to a desperate cover-up. A cover-up designed to protect the presidency and to erase the connection between Camelot and the tragic star who may have known too much. Perhaps investigative journalist Anthony Summers stated it best. The circumstances of her death were deliberately covered up, and the reason was her connection with the Kennedy brothers. The story of Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedys is more than a Hollywood scandal. It is an examination of the intersection of unimaginable power and unbearable vulnerability. It is a reflection on the human cost of fame and the secrets that lie beneath the polished surfaces of history. And the greatest tragedy is that we may never know the full truth about the final lonely hours of the woman born Norma Jean, who became the immortal Marilyn Monroe.